Leadership has been defined, right, and redefined for several decades now, that we could spend the whole afternoon talking about our own definitions of leadership. Amazon actually says that there are 57,000 books written on the topic of leadership. Can you believe that? How many have you read from the 57,000, right? But it's interesting, though, that when we look around us, how many good leaders do we see? How many great leaders do we know? A study in the US shows that about 38% of CEOs fail during the first few years in the job, not because of lack of education, experience, or tenure, but rather, can you guess what? Because of pride, or ego, or lack of character. I don't know about you, that's a bit surprising. But we don't have to take a look at the US. Right? We can take a look at our own country. We can take a look at our own organizations and our teams. Better yet, we can take a look at our own mirrors. Could I invite you to do that with me for just a moment? And think about this. What kind of leader are you today? What kind of leader are you today? Now, this is the kind of question we ask in the Lead Like Jesus program. And I stand here before you not because I've perfected how to lead like Jesus, but as I remember the first time I attended a program from Lead Like Jesus facilitated by Boris, many of the things that I learned then continue to be part of the many changes I make in my life and my leadership today. It's been an amazing journey. Now, more than a decade ago, I joined as a department head in a global law firm. And I remember being surrounded by so many leaders with so much more tenure and experience than I had at that time. And so that motivated me to begin studying leadership books because I didn't want to get left behind. I wanted to keep up with the pace. And so as I continued to study leadership, that helped me in my own development, and I shared whatever I could to the people that I was mentoring. But somehow, I also continued to experience challenges. I also continued to struggle to lead well. Even coming to the point, as I was leading and mentoring and pouring of myself to the people that I was leading, I even came to the point that I just ran empty. Has that ever happened to you? Has that ever happened to you? Thank you. I see some honest people here nodding, smiling at that thought, right, of just running empty. It happens. It does happen. And so after many years of experiencing that, I finally experienced the Lead Like Jesus program. Or as I like to share it, Jesus encountered me and my leadership. And then something in me just clicked. I realized that I had been taking leadership from my primarily intellectual perspective, not recognizing that leadership actually starts with the heart. And when our hearts are transformed, our leadership changes. Earlier, when I asked you, what kind of leader are you today? What I was really asking is, are you a self-serving leader or are you a serving leader? And it's very hard for us to admit that we're self-serving. But it's also equally hard for us to say, yes, I'm a serving leader, especially when we're running on empty. And with 57,000 different definitions of how to lead, which one do we follow? Now, interestingly, way before any of these books were written, Jesus gave us a definition for leadership. He redefined leadership, and he asked us to serve just as he served. So what does leading with Jesus look like? In a word, leading like Jesus looks like love. Now I know what you must be thinking. Love? Are we seriously talking about love in the workplace? The only love that works is the tough kind of love. But if we were being honest, what kind of leadership do we want? Right? I don't want a leader that hates me. I want a leader that loves me, trusts me, develops, and empowers me. 75% of employees leave their organizations because of their manager. We all want, actually, if we were being honest, right? A leadership that's founded on love. And thankfully, we don't need to debate what love means because 1 Corinthians tells us exactly what it is. By a quick show of hands, can I kindly see who's seen this passage before? Quick show of hands, be honest. Wonderful, wow, everybody. So I'm not teaching anything new here. Well, of course not. But I'd like to invite you to see it a little bit differently today. Where you see the blank, could you kindly just pop in your name in there and read it again? I'm seeing reactions already. How was that for you? They say whenever you read it and you feel that tightening in your throat, that's the area you need to work on. But we all have areas we need to work on, right? A friend once told me, Francis, hurt people hurt people. But I also learned that love people love people. And this is not the easy kind of leadership because in fact, it's easier to be unkind. It's easier to be impatient and angry. But this is exactly the kind of leadership that Jesus has called us to do. However, recognizing that we can't give what we don't have, we need to know that there's only one true source of love. And friends, you can't lead like Jesus without Jesus. But this is a kind of leadership that can thrive in the workplace. Can you imagine what it would be like to be the leader that you've always wanted to have? What your teams would feel knowing that you model a love-based kind of leadership. And as much as this works in the workplace, can you imagine what it would be like to bring this kind of leadership in our homes, where we lead the people that we love the most? This is exactly the kind of leadership we've been called to. What would it look like if we intentionally sought to serve, love, and lead like Jesus? And instead, I want to ask you a different question now. What kind of leader do you want to be?